So Fox News was doing its usual thing last week, bringing on a retired vice admiral to give the establishment line of propaganda on the Iran standoff. But am I taking crazy pills? Am I the only one who sees something strange here?
Well, let me give you another little perspective on that. When you talk about resilience, the IRGC, the entity that controls the country, may have resilience, but the Iranian people are suffering miserably. And the more we can enhance that discord and weaken the regime, not only in the eyes of the Iranian people, but the world global economy, which they're holding all hostage to, the more everybody comes to realize this is all about the IRGC.
Blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. We're bombing the Iranian people in order to save the Iranian people. You know, the usual garbage propaganda line. I'm not talking about what this apparent retired vice admiral is saying. I'm talking about his face, literally, this talking head. What is going on here? I cannot be the only one seeing this. All right, so this is from a May 19th, 2026 interview of retired Vice Admiral Robert Harward on the Iran standoff. It is up on Fox News. I will, of course, put the link to this video in the show notes. But Brock, please put it on screen as big as possible. Zoom in on whatever the hell is happening on the neck there. That is very odd. In fact, it really looks like there is a mouth underneath that neck when you start to look at it long enough.
But I am telling you right now, that mother back there is not real.
Anyway, there is something very, very strange happening there, and there are a number of possibilities. And the one that presents itself automatically, I think, to people taking a look at this for the first time is that's got to be some kind of mask, right? Like a Mission Impossible style mask that we are expecting this guy is going to, rip the mask off at any second now, right? Maybe not. Maybe so. Anyway, I just invite you all to take a look at it for yourselves. And as I say, the link will be in the show notes. So please go and look at it for yourself, blow it up nice and big, really stare at it and see if that looks like just a normal everyday thing to you. I don't know. Something is going on there. And just for good measure, I will also throw in the link to the Internet Archive preserved version of this on the Television News Archive. It's a separate source recorded live from the Fox News feed. So this is, again, the original actual video of this, but it has been recorded from a different source, which is important because apparently now people are going around and AI deep faking reptilian flashes into his eyes and other such things. Anyway, so make sure you're looking at it from a real source. But at any rate, there are a number of things to say about this. One of which is, does this guy ever blink? Oh, there we go. He blinked once there. I guess he's real, but there is something very strange about the intense way that he is staring. There's something very strange about his complete lack of a, what's that called? A philtrum underneath his nose there. In fact, any sort of visible lines. There are a number of things that you could start taking a look at that just seem weird. The way that his neck comes out over the crease of his collar. What on earth is going on there? It looks like it's inflating as he talks. It's, again, strange on a number of levels. And I'm not the only one who thinks this looks odd. In fact, it's been making the rounds on Reddit and other rather normie central sorts of places. Fox News guest today appears to be wearing a very realistic face mask in which they, again, zoom in on that, whatever is going on in that neck area. And lots of discussion and speculation about what this is from a lot of people who are also seeing it as either a mask or some sort of face filter, which I'm starting to lean towards now that I'm looking into this. And, of course, some of people coming in and saying, you're all idiots. It's just studio lighting. You can obviously see that is just a shadow that is being cast by his collar. Again, once you see it in motion, it is impossible for me to see that as a shadow. I'm really trying to look at it. Now, to be fair, I am not one of those people who can look at the magic image thing where you have to cross your eyes and look far away and you can see the 3D image. I'm not very good at that sort of thing. So maybe I'm just not gifted at this. But the more I look, the less it looks like a mask. Less it looks like a shadow, and more like it looks like a physical separation of some mask that's overhanging the real neck that you can see moving underneath. That's what it looks like. And as I say, when you really start to look at it, it almost looks like there's a second mouth underneath there. Anyway, wow, what do we make of this? Well, one thing that we can say for sure is that, or as sure as we can be about anything that we're seeing online, is that apparently this is a real guy. It's Robert Harward, the retired vice admiral who served in the United States Navy SEALs. He was in service from 1975 to 2013. And the interesting part of his biography, which is obviously of relevance, is that apparently his father advised the pre-revolutionary Iranian military. So he and his family lived in Iran in his early years, and he attended the Tehran American School there. So this is why he's been a frequent guest on Fox News recently to talk about Iran from his perspective. And there are many photos of him from his service days, and you can go and dig down into the extra links here into many, many articles from many years going back to 2010, etc., of Harward. And you can go and examine all of these different articles and take a look at this person and see that, he does have that distinct appearance. And then you can actually start to go into his various Fox News appearances, like, for example, another interview that he gave on the exact same day as that previous interview, May 19th, 2026. Here's another Fox Business interview that was conducted that day. And in this interview, you can see he is wearing, presumably this is the exact same outfit, again, from the exact same day. But you will notice that the color, again, Brock, please put up this side-by-side comparison of these two talking heads talking at the same time. And you will see that the color of the suit is slightly different. Obviously, there's a yellow suit in the on the other May 19th interview, and this is sort of a beigeish suit. But again, that does not necessarily speak to the trickery in and of itself. That can speak to the many conditions that do go into this. Clearly, for example, this is not professional studio lighting. Presumably, Harward was not in an actual TV studio for this interview. And so you can tell he's being lit from the top, for example, and that's casting dramatic shadows on his face. And you can see that the color of his suit is different because, again, not studio lighting and not color grading of whatever sort was going on in the America's Newsroom interview. That is the weird mask-wearing interview in question. So you can see he does kind of look like this, and there are people who are saying, no, his face shape is all different when in the mask version. Well, no, I've looked at several videos of him, and I think that his face is generally shaped in the way that it seems to be shaped in the other May 19th interview. It does seem to line up. If you listen to him speak, I cannot detect a discernible difference. He does sound the same in the other interview. So, this raises even more questions. If he were wearing a mask, is it actually Harward wearing a mask of himself? That doesn't seem to make any sense. And if not that, then is it an actor who happens to have the same mouth? Or no, same voice, I should say. Or no, maybe they AI morphed this actor's voice to sound like him as he's wearing a mask. But then the other level of this is, why would they air this if it is a discernible mask that you can visibly see? Why would they go to such incredible lengths to make somebody look like somebody else? And then, oops, his mask's his neck's all hanging out there. Oops, I guess somebody should have looked at that before we went to air. Again, there's more questions than answers. If you really start thinking, okay, what is this? What is happening here? And is this a mask? All we can go with regards to this is what we see. And what I see, and I can't speak for anyone else or their judgment, but what I see is something is strange about this. And as I say, I am leaning towards the fact that this is not a mask as it looks at first glance. This is absolutely what it looks like. I do genuinely believe that there is some sort of face filter smoothing, color grading, post-processing, whatever that they are using at Fox to smooth out his face. Because one thing that is very apparent is this man has very visible laugh lines and wrinkles and a very, very wrinkly old man's face, as you would expect. This man has an absolutely smooth as a baby's bottom face, which again even seems to eliminate the line underneath his nose, just everything. You can see the vague outline of his laugh lines there, but you cannot see it in any great degree of detail. Everything seems smoothed out. And it seems like whatever filter is being used is just getting cut off at his neckline there. And we start to see some of the real underneath. That's what I think is happening. But again, what do I know? All I can go by is what we're seeing here because we're not getting the whole story, obviously. Now, if you are interested in pursuing this, what is going on here? Well, of course, the place you go is Polymarket to find out what the the consensus reality over at Polymarket is, and you will find, at least as of the time I'm recording this, that the question is, was the Fox News guest wearing a mask? And right now, let's see what are the odds on this one? Oh, it's 1% yes. So it's 99.4% likely that he was not wearing a mask, that this is actually Robert Harward. Polymarket has spoken. But again, when it comes to Polymarket, the devil's always in the details. And apparently confirmation for this market is from Robert Harward, Fox News, or an official representative of either party, which will qualify as confirmation for this, and may come through public statements, official network communications, social media posts, or press releases. And a statement of denial will not be sufficient to resolve this market to know. This market may not resolve to know until the time frame is ended without a qualifying announcement. All right, interesting. Well, make of all that what you will. And speaking of statements about this, there have been, and I will get into that in a bit. But anyway, if you don't know what Polymarket is, you have some catching up to do, and you can do so with episode 500 of the Corbett Report, What No One is Saying About Polymarket, available wherever fine Corbett Report videos are posted. So please take a look at that if you don't know. But anyway, this is what the Polymarket consensus is. So what on earth is going on here? Now, generally, I would not bother to spend time on this type of low-hanging conspiratainment fruit. But it's hard to disbelieve your lying eyes in a case like this, isn't it? And in fact, maybe that is part of the problem, or at least part of the question of what is going on here, because we can't largely disbelieve our lying eyes when it comes to the things that we are seeing. However, we should keep in mind that chances are 99% of the time, you are probably not a super sleuth when it comes to these types of questions. What am I talking about? I am talking about this editorial that I wrote back in 2019. It's called Upon Meeting a Friend for the First Time, and I wrote it on the occasion of James Evan Pilato's visit to Japan, where he came to visit me, and we met for the first time in person, and we recorded that New World Next Week 10th anniversary extravaganza episode. You'll remember that, of course. And if you don't, please go check it out. I'll put the link in the show notes. But in this editorial, I made a point about what people tend to do when they're analyzing this type of video material. Like, for example, the Robert Harward wearing a face mask video, question mark. It's hard to believe that I've been collaborating with James Evan Pilato on New World Next Week, our weekly news update series, for 10 years now. Well, actually, now it's 17 years. It's even harder to believe that after all these years of talking about a real-world meetup with James, that it finally happened. But if you've seen my latest video podcast, you'll see that we managed to combine the two events, a real-life meetup here in Japan for the 10th anniversary of the series. But a funny thing happened on the way to this podcast a few months ago. When it became clear that this was really going to happen, I realized I had no idea how tall Pilato actually is. In fact, I even made a bet with Corbett Report video editor Brock West. If Pilato was at least 6 feet tall, as I speculated, Brock owed me a curry next time he's in Japan. If Pilato was shorter than that, I'd owe Brock a bowl of ramen, his favorite Japanese dish. And this tells the story of that bet and what it means that I could be friends with someone, a close colleague, companion, collaborator who I've seen a million times online and spent actually more time talking to than my friends and family back home in Canada over these 17 years that we've been collaborating. And yet, at the time, up to the point at which we actually physically met in person, I had no idea how tall Pilato was. And so the question becomes for you guys out there, who won the bet? Was Pilato over 6 feet tall? Was he under 6 feet tall? Wait, how about Corbett? How tall is he? And well, here's the video. You can tell from this. You can tell exactly how tall. Well, maybe you can't tell exactly how tall, but you can make an informed guess at how tall each of us are and who's taller than the other, right? Oh, actually, as I make the point in the article, no, you cannot, because if you'll notice, and you might have to have been involved in video production or photography at some point to even begin to think about this, but you cannot see where our feet are, where we're sitting in relation to the camera. So you don't know who is sitting closer to the camera or farther away, who's sitting on what, and how that affects their height. And as I was making this point in the article, that everyone thinks that there's some sort of CSI detective that can figure out all these things from these visual clues. Oh, look, we can estimate the height of this, whatever, from this, and et cetera, et cetera. And when I pointed this out, of course, people in the comment section of that editorial and in a subsequent video in which I mentioned this editorial, there were people in the comments that were speculating and trying to triangulate. Okay, we can see that the size of the bus bench on which James Evan Pilato is sitting is such and such, which means that he's going to be such and such feet tall, etc. And the funny thing from my perspective was I was looking at the people in the comments, every single person, every comment that was attempting to speculate, attempting to triangulate, attempting to put something together to make some informed speculation. Every one of them was wrong. Every single one of them was wrong. As to who was taller, me or Pilato, as to how tall each of us are, every one of them was wrong. And my whole point in the editorial is, you know what? Until you actually meet in person in real life, you don't really know. You don't know such basic things as how tall is that guy? And it's something that, of course, you don't even think about when you know someone in real life. You only think about it when you've only ever seen them on a screen, and all you have is your eyeball to go with. So the point I was making in that editorial, and one that seems relevant for today's discussion about Robert Harward and his mask, is that everyone thinks that they're a super sleuth CSI detective that can figure everything out when just from the video evidence. And 99 times out of 100, they really can't. Because A, they don't know what they're talking about. Most people have not worked in video production on this level. And I have never worked in a TV news studio, so I do not know what the latest technology, not only for the lighting, but for the color grading and the processing and the filters and whatever else they are using on their guests that can create these types of artifacts. I do not have that level of detailed knowledge. So I am at least humble enough in my epistemology to know there are gaping things I do not know that could explain or account for these types of things. And yes, I mean, could it be a shadow? Well, I guess it could be. It does not look like one to me at all. It does not look like that. But could I be wrong? I certainly could. And we should always leave some room in our epistemology for that, because otherwise we start to get into the sorts of speculation that I've seen about every single video event of everything that has happened in the past decade or two. Immediately you have a bunch of total experts, crack investigative journalists commenting in the comment section of various online sites about, oh, well, that can't be a real video of a real person being shot, because I know it doesn't look like that, and you don't see the blood splattering everywhere just like you would in real life. Meanwhile, these people are commenting based on their knowledge from having seen 1,000 people getting shot in movies. That doesn't look like the movies that I've seen, therefore it's not real. Is a trap that people can fall into. So all I'm saying here is I think we should be skeptical about what we are seeing here, but we should also be skeptical about whatever grand leaps we're going to come to with regards to this. I have to be shown this video from another angle, somebody recording some off, or some, as he's getting into place and getting his mic ready and everything and seeing the shadows falling on his, I would need to be shown how this is. But the visual cues that I'm getting here is that is not normal. And as I say, I at this point, I think it is probably a facial smoothing filter. That probably makes the most sense given all of the information I have, but I am definitely willing and able to be corrected on this. But should we be castigated as crazy conspiracy weirdos for even thinking that it could be possible that they would be using whatever, masks or actors or whatever, to portray their guests on something like Fox News. No, we should not be, because specifically Fox, but really every corporate establishment media outlet, but certainly specifically Fox, have used actors to portray guests on their news programming, emphasis on programming, in the past.
Joining us now, an insider, Eric, who was part of Antifa for 10 years. He's disguised himself to protect his life. All right, so Eric, how'd you get roped into the whole Antifa thing?
Hey Jesse, how you doing? It started when I was young. I got in through working with different groups like the ARA, Cop Watch, Food Not Bombs, when that punk rock movement and stuff when I was younger, growing up in Seattle. Probably about ninth grade or so.
Well, first of all, he, like many Mexican mafia members, were anti-black. That was part and parcel of who he was as a bad guy, as a gang member. And records will reflect that.
Here with his brand new book, comes out today. It's called The Operator, Firing the Shots That Killed Osama bin Laden. In my years as a SEAL team warrior, Rob O'Neill joins us live. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Steve. Thank you for having me.
The book is great.
I appreciate that. It was a long time coming. It's a great story about growing up a normal person in Butte, Montana, and finding yourself in Abbottabad, Pakistan.
What? You're not convinced that that's all three the same person? You know what? Actually, neither am I. So I might be on the minority in this, apparently, but it seems that everyone online seems to think that certainly those first two masked individuals being interviewed by Jesse Waters of Fox News were, in fact, the same person. I am somewhat more skeptical of that, and also of the further attribution that both of those were actually that third person, the Rob O'Neill, who was part of the Osama bin Laden raid. But that is what is being floated online, and not just by the usual suspects, those crazy, wild-eyed conspiracy realists. No, by the people who generally tend to deride those conspiracy realists and put down anything that smacks of conspiracy, unless it goes with their political proclivities, in which case closed, it was a conspiracy. For example, case in point, numero uno, Sam Cedar of the Majority Report, who, of course, would be against absolutely any whiff of a hint of anything resembling a conspiracy. No, everyone involved in the January 6th protest was an authentic, actual protester, an actual MAGA person who really wanted to destroy the government. You crazy conspiracy theorists. But here is Sam Cedars talking about how, that masked Antifa whistleblower looks just like the Mexican cartel guy, right? It's not just Sam Cedar, it's Mediaite. Fox News masked Antifa whistleblower looks suspiciously similar to its former Mexican mafia member. It's TV Insider. TV Insider. Jesse Waters masked Antifa whistleblower looks suspiciously familiar, say viewers, etc., etc. In fact, so oft repeated is this that it even became its own meme, which you can find, of course, at knowyourmeme.com. Did former Navy SEAL Robert J. O'Neill pretend to be multiple masked guests on Fox News? The viral Jesse Waters conspiracy theory explained, in which they talk about this and the fact that, yes, the masked Antifa member and the masked ex-Mexican gang member are being claimed to be the same person, and that is this guy, this Rob O'Neill. And they go through that meme and how it's developed, and they even show, of course, this image that is generally thrown around in relation to this. Here's Jesse Waters interviewing the former Antifa member. Here's Jesse Waters interviewing the former Mexican gang member. And here's Jesse Waters interviewing a former ISIS leader in Gaza. And it's clearly the same guy, white guy with blue eyes. Clearly the same as the Antifa guy, right? Ha ha ha. Isn't it ridiculous? Well, it is ridiculous because this third image doesn't exist. It's not real. It was created as this one personality says, as a joke response, as in, look, this is how ridiculous it is. It's as if he interviewed some masked ISIS figure. Of course, some people take that and run with it as if it was real, but it is not. It was taken as an image from this NPR article from 10 years ago. Thousands of ISIS documents apparently leaked to British media, and here's this whatever ISIS image. But then they've taken that and photoshopped it so it looks like the same masked guy on Fox News. Ha ha, isn't it funny? Anyway, do you see a potential problem with this? Not only in the attribution of all of these people being the same person, which I don't think it's convincing. To me, it sounds like different people, and the facial structure looks different. I think they have different eye color, although that's difficult to tell depending on lighting and color grading and other such things that go on, as we've already seen. But they seem to have different eye color. They speak differently. Doesn't seem like the same person to me. And then you add in a fake joke image that some people take as real to try to further demonstrate your point. So let's lie for our truth. No, I think you understand where this could go wrong because, of course, it just feeds into the good old fact checker conspiratainment rug pull. Haha, you conspiracy nutters fell for this. Oh my God! And then they come in with their fact checks to prove you wrong. No, it's a different guy, and Fox News denies it, and et cetera, et cetera. I think you know how that goes, but in case you don't, here it is in the form of a fact check on video of Fox News guest Robert Harward. Focus of face mask rumors is real and unedited, and it has a big, giant original vid sticker over this thumbnail image. So you know that they've done the hard work. So basically, they go and show and take a look at this shadow and highlight the weirdness of it and the way things people are saying about it. They link to to their credit, they actually link to the video on YouTube so you can go and watch it for yourself. And then they'll show you still images of it with the circle around the line, which I got to admit, if I just saw that, I don't think that would be convincing. It could be a shadow. I don't know what it is. It's not until I see it in motion that I really have my questions about it. But anyway, then they go and they find out the real things about this. Of course, Lead Stories reached out to Fox News, Harward, and the Jewish Institute for National Security of America, JINSA, where Harward, archived here, is a national security expert, for comment on the mask speculation. In a May 22nd, 2026 email, a Fox News spokesperson provided this response. Vice Admiral Robert Harward appeared on Fox News Channel earlier this week via a remote mobile camera operated by an outside vendor. During the interview, lighting conditions in the van contrasted with the Vice Admiral's jacket, which caused a shadow to appear on his neck. Case closed, guys. It was a shadow, so says Fox News. And of course, JINSA also responded by saying, we appreciate the Vice Admiral's Harward's interview has been a source of some internet levity these past 24 hours, and we've had a good laugh over it. Silly plebs. But to burst the bubble, it was not a mask. And it goes on to say that, for example, he was interviewed an hour later using his personal device and without the benefit of professional lighting, and you can see it's the same guy and it's just different lighting, etc. Right? Case closed, guys. You silly conspiracy theorists. Why would you even think about this type of thing? Well, that is a question. Why are we even thinking about this type of thing? Surely there are more important things going on in the world right now than whether or not this demonstrably real human being who has been a guest many, many times saying these exact kinds of things was actually an actor in a mask or some sort of weird AI filter thing or something. For what purpose? To spread the exact propaganda that even if it wasn't Rear Admiral whatever Harward, it's exactly what he would say. And I have no doubt if he is ever asked about this, he will completely confirm it was him or this is exactly what I would say, because it is. I mean, the propaganda-wise, there's absolutely no point to a maneuver like this. The only thing could be if, I don't know, Harward wasn't available and they're like, well, we need to have your voice here. So, okay, guys, you can put an actor in a mask. Again, that doesn't make any sense, which is why I'm leading towards the face filter with some weird digital artifact gone wrong. Or something along those lines. But it does raise the question, well, what is the point of any of this? Why go to all these lengths and to gin this up and to make a big thing out of it? Oh, maybe there is some sort of reason beyond just the conspiratainment rug pull of the fact checkers, although they always love that. You see, you trust these crazy conspiracy talking head people to tell you the truth about the world, but they can't even get it right about this person on the news. They think he was wearing a face mask. They're so ridiculous and out to lunch. We will tell you the hard truths that really matter, that COVID was very real and vaccines are definitely the answer. And you should definitely trust the plan when it comes to Trump and the Iran war and everything else. Believe our propaganda is the general message. But there is a deeper and darker message. And that is a message that I tried to draw out in a recent editorial that I would like to commend to your attention. It's called The CIA Won. Everything you believe is false. And I posted this up last Sunday, so it is, of course, up on the front page of CorbettReport.com as I record this. It is also up on my Substack. So I hope you will go and read through this article. I think it's an important one about a very important subject that has to do with what we're talking about. And it proceeds from that internet famous quotation from CIA Director William Casey. We'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false. An important quote, I shouldn't butcher it, let me read that again. We'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false. That is a stunning quotation from an ex-CIA director, isn't it? And in fact, it's one of those quotations that is too good to be true. And there are many of those out there. It's Rockefeller talking at Bilderberg, thanking the media for covering up for them so that they could institute their New World Order. Those quotes are 99 times out of 100 completely made up baloney or third-hand, trust me, bro sourcing that doesn't go back to anything. This quotation actually does. It is a real quotation that, at the very least, has been personally attested to by the eyewitness to these words, Barbara Honegger, who says she was in the February 1981 meeting in the Roosevelt Room in the West Wing of the White House, in which she heard William Casey say these words. She then became the source for senior White House correspondent Sarah McClendon, who then publicized that quote, but without the source. And it has floated around for many years since then, but it does go back to a real person who can really testify that William Casey really did say this. And that is, again, it's a stunning admission. The CIA apparently has a disinformation program that will be complete when everything the American public believes is false. And we know what that means, right? Of course, it means that they're lying about everything and they want everything they want you to be misled and misinformed about everything. And of course, that lines up with what we know about the world as it exists. Anyone who watches establishment media or listens to establishment sources, everything they believe is false. And it's easy to see how that lines up and how that comes out, whether they are talking about COVID or whether they're talking about the Ukraine war or the Iran war or the Epstein files or anything else. They're all wrong and misled and misinformed by the lying liars of the mainstream media who have been wrong about everything. So everything they believe is false. So there you go. But wait, maybe there's a deeper level to this. And I talk about a couple of ways that this can be an even darker and deeper agenda, because once we get in the general public who have our heads screwed on straight, get used to identifying this propaganda and disinformation and seeing through it, then our own cynicism and skepticism can be weaponized against us. For example, how many times have we seen something being promoted by the establishment media only to find out actually Soros was funding it behind the scenes? And now we know what that means. It means we should be on the other side of the issue. Well, guess what, guys? You're angry about the AI data centers? Turns out Soros is funding the AI data center opposition, so you better be in support of AI data center monstrosities. Haha, checkmate, conspiracy realists. Now, don't look too deeply into the sourcing of this report and what it actually means. Oh, wait, you definitely should look into it. And I do talk about it here. It comes from this explosive Dallas Express investigation. Soros-funded Indivisible targets Texas data centers in Temple, Texas, which talks about how there is a national AstroTurf protest group that has received funding from Soros in the past, that has one local chapter in some nowhere Texas that was part of one protest against one local Texas data center. And from that chain of events, we see Soros is funding AI data center opposition. See, anybody who's out protesting or is trying to stop these data centers is actually a Soros stooge. No one actually dislikes these AI data center guys, and you shouldn't either, is the implication. Of course, that is one gigantic psyop and one way that our own skepticism about what we're being told can be weaponized against us, because once we start to see, oh, Soros equals bad guy equals we should be on the other side, then they just have to feed out some false information about Soros and his position. But it gets even darker, because at a certain point, our cynicism, our total negationism of everything doesn't exist, never happened, they're lying, everything they say is a lie, starts to lead us into the post-truth world, in which we start not only disbelieving the lies, we start disbelieving that there is such a thing as truth. And that is a pretty horrible situation to be in. And I tie this back, again, this post-truth world we're hearing so much about that for the, of course, the mainstream progressive lefty outlets, it only started with Trump. No, it's been going on for a very long time. And in fact, Orwell was writing about it back in 1943 when he published Looking Back on the Spanish War, where he was talking about his own personal experience fighting on the Republican side in the Spanish Civil War and what he saw versus what was being represented in the news reports about that war. He wrote, "Early in life, I had noticed that no event is ever correctly reported in a newspaper. But in Spain, for the first time, I saw newspaper reports which did not bear any relation to the facts, not even the relationship which is implied in an ordinary lie. I saw great battles reported where there had been no fighting, and complete silence where hundreds of men had been killed. I saw troops who had fought bravely denounced as cowards and traitors, and others who had never seen a shot fired hailed as the heroes of imaginary victories. And I saw newspapers in London retailing these lies and eager intellectuals building emotional superstructures over events that had never happened. I saw, in fact, history being written not in terms of what happened, but of what ought to have happened, according to various party lines." As I go on to write that newspapers would lie about events in order to craft a narrative in line with their political bias is sadly not shocking. But what was shocking to Orwell, and what should be shocking to us, is that the public not only knew that they were being lied to, they accepted it. Indeed, as he went on to warn, the public's expectation that all reporting is propaganda is even more dangerous than the propaganda itself. "This kind of thing is frightening to me," wrote Orwell, "because it often gives me the feeling that the very concept of objective truth is fading out of the world. I know it is the fashion to say that most of recorded history is lies anyway. I'm willing to believe that history is, for the most part, inaccurate and biased. But what is peculiar to our own age is the abandonment of the idea that history could be truthfully written." And then he goes on, I go on to talk about, of course, this obviously informed 1984 in the Big Brother police state, and 2 + 2 = 5, and Big Brother's mission will not be complete until Winston accepts that and learns to love Big Brother, and will believe 2 + 2 = 5 when he is told that that is what it equals, and will believe it equals 4 when he's told that is what it equals, and will believe it equals pink umbrellas when that he's told that's what it equals. To believe anything that he is told or disbelieve anything he is told at any times, no matter what his eyes and senses are telling him. That's the real win here for the conspirators, is to lead us into the post-truth world of total abandonment, absolutely no relation to reality. There's nothing that we can believe anymore. And aren't we there? Because we're already at the point where there is a genuine question. What the hell was happening with Robert Harward's neck there? What is going on? What is that? And the fact that if it was a guy wearing a mask, I would not be completely shocked should be shocking. That should be shocking because, of course, it does mean we are at the point, we're just at that point where the deep fake post-truth world is going to take precedence. And who knows? It could be completely, that entire interview could be completely AI generated at this point. And hardly anyone would be able to tell the difference. And in a couple of years, no one will be able to tell the difference because it will be absolutely the total simulacrum of reality that we are used to from the media. So what does this mean? Well, one of the things that this implies is, as I go on to point out, there is nothing less conducive to an informed, motivated, and organized resistance than a public who has stopped believing in truth. And as I finish the editorial, given the foregoing, perhaps Casey's dictum can be reformulated as, "We'll know the CIA's disinformation campaign is complete when the people of the world don't believe anything at all." If that were the case, then what dictum could we formulate to counter it? What could we establish as a standard for measuring not the CIA's success, but the CIA's failure? Perhaps we'll know the CIA's disinformation campaign has failed when a critical mass of the public is actively engaged in working with their friends and neighbors to vet information, establish what is true, and work together to improve the conditions of their existence. For some reason, I doubt that phrase will catch on with the public, but maybe one of you wordsmiths out there can propose something snappier. Well, if you are one of those wordsmiths, please do. Log into CorbettReport.com. Go to CorbettReport.com/propagandawatch. Propagandawatch mask. Easy for me to say. And you will find today's episode. Please, in the comments, leave your own formulation that you think might catch on with the general public to articulate that point in particular. As I try to make the point in this overall editorial, again, go please read the entire thing for yourself. People love spending time deriding their neighbors and fellow countrymen and women. You're the problem, and because you don't believe this thing that I believe, and you disbelieve that other thing that I believe, and et cetera, et cetera. Therefore, everything's going to hell. Instead of spending our time actually cooperating, working together on the things that we have in common in order to formulate and to grow the alternative structures that will be the parallel structures that will see us through the times of tribulation that are coming. Or, we could just all spend our time arguing with each other on the internet, which is exactly, of course, where the conspirators want us. That is exactly what they want us to do, to spend all our time and energy, all of it, railing against our fellow men and women who believe differently than we do, as opposed to actually trying to work together to establish truth, vet information. So, you know what? Sometimes things that are said by establishment media reports are objectively true, that do actually correspond to objective truth about the real world. Of course, it's always the question of the context in which that information is presented. But anyway, that means that we can't just simply say, I saw it on TV, therefore it's fake. It unfortunately requires some actual cognitive labor of vetting information, triangulating information, finding what we can source and what is reliable, what is not reliable, what corresponds to the objective reality of the real world and how we can come to understand that, and then how we fit that in the overall broader context of a viewpoint that explains this information. And that's a lot of work, I know, which is why most people don't want to really devote themselves to it. I get it. It's so much easier just to say everything's fake, everything's false, can't believe anything. And these types of crazy little glitches in the matrix, intentional or not, that crop up on the news with someone like Rear Admiral Harward is exactly the type of thing that feeds into this post-truth negationist cynicism. So what am I saying? Am I saying that therefore this interview is totally on the up and up and you shouldn't have any? No, of course. You can believe your own lying eyes or not. You can dig for more information or not. But perhaps we're missing the deeper truth about where we are and what's coming with these new technologies that are coming to make it so that we cannot believe anything we see on our screens. What does that leave us? Where does that leave us in terms of constructing a true map of reality? These are some pretty deep questions from just a funny little, hey, is that a guy wearing a mask? But this is where we are in the year of our Lord 2026, and I have a feeling it's only going to get crazier from here. So anyway, as I say, all of the notes, including all of the links to all of the videos that I'm talking about and articles I'm citing today, will be in the show notes at corbettreport.com/propagandawatch-mask, as will the always informed commentary from the Corbett Report members. So Corbett Report members, log in and leave your response to these ideas. I'm looking forward to reading them, and I'm looking forward to talking to you again in greater detail on other subjects in the near future. Media. It surrounds us. We live our lives in it and through it. We structure our lives around it. But it wasn't always this way. So how did we get here? And where is the media technology that increasingly governs our lives taking us? The Media Matrix. Watch the documentary for free at corbettreport.com/media or purchase a copy on DVD at newworldnextweek.com.